Welcome to Hope Through the Hard, a curated coalition podcast where we talk honestly about life struggles and how to face them in healthy, hope-filled ways. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul says, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." That's the purpose of this space. Real conversations about the hard things in life and the hope that carries us through. Visit curatedcoalition.com to find our coaching services and book a free consultation.
Hi, I'm Levi, and this is Ashley, and we have Lincoln running production today. And so we got our kid question today.
Okay.
Would you rather live in New York City or a small town?
Oh, neither.
Right? How small is small town?
I don't know. Lincoln, how small is a small town? 100 people?
Oh.
100 people?
New York City.
Yeah,
I've seen 100 people.
I'm not living in a small town.
There'd be nothing for you to eat.
No.
And you would have to drive probably an hour to get some groceries.
Yeah, no. I guess we're living in New York City. I'll pass on that for real,
Can I
though.
live on the farthest outskirts part of New York City?
I really hope so.
Metro area.
Uh-huh.
It's where I'd be shooting for, because I would not want to be walking. Yeah, you can't drive downtown.
I don't, that doesn't bother me at all. Walking doesn't bother me at all. It's just like the people.
The people.
That's so many people. Mm-hmm. No, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, well, good question today, Lincoln. I like that one. So today we are talking about the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. And we live in a world that, quite frankly, just glorifies being busy. We measure our worth on how much we produce and how fast we respond and how full our calendars are. But what if rest isn't a reward for finishing our work, but it's part of the work that God designed for us?
Yeah. And that's a great question of figuring out the idea of what this means, because Sabbath happened in Genesis 2 and 3, before the fall and before sin and before all human was striving to make something of themselves. God modeled rest to us and showed us how to do these things. He was perfect. He had unlimited energy, so he didn't need to have rest. He was able to just continue to go, but he knew that there's a lot that was involved in that. He created rhythms for us to sleep at night and made it dark. He created rhythms for us to be able to take time off because of the way our bodies are also structured. So then we can detox. Our body can reset and balance on the hormones. We can clean our brain, and we can rest and let our body heal itself of whatever it might be fighting as well. So there's reasons for this that he built specifically in us to rest every night, but also to take a day every week to rest.
Yeah, and I'm not too good at that. So this was a good discussion for me to think about, because I'm not great at rest.
I don't think any of us are, especially in America.
Yeah.
Unless you're just lazy and don't do anything. But then again, there's also an issue with some of that rest too.
Yeah. But God didn't design rest because he was tired. He rested to delight in the creation that he had made. So that was an interesting thought for me. How often do we stop just to delight in what we have accomplished and what we have going on, delight in our homes and in our children. And then just to take that time to glorify God, to rest, to stop, to slow down, to glorify God for what he's given us and what we've been able to accomplish and what we've been able to do. Yeah. So that one set apart day is designed for that. And that was a really kind of mind-boggling thing for me to think about this week.
Yeah. And part of the whole Sabbath thing is also God trying to let us know we are more than just what we do, which that's a rough one to think of, because the world of what we live in, the culture we live in, is just constantly off of who you are, what you've done, and how much money you have and things like that.
What you have, yeah.
Right. And so he's saying that stuff doesn't matter, and you can take a day of rest. Originally, work was part of the gardening and was something designed to bring joy to the partner with God. Yeah. And we've got to understand that there's times we have to take a Sabbath to give us the opportunities to enjoy the fruits of our life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think hustle culture is the new form of legalism. It tells us that we'll be enough when we earn enough, when we achieve enough, or when we prove ourselves worthy. And I have bought into that for most. Lovey is really like, she has been on a walk today, but she is like
She's loving on you.
searching for some affection today. I have always sort of believed in that. I've always bought into that way of thinking. The idea that I can take a break once I've done everything. I can take a break and rest and enjoy once the cooking is done, the cleaning is done, the laundry is done, the house is swept up, school is put away, like all of these things. The kitchen is clean. I can always find another reason to keep going. And I've said that to you more than once. Like, I cannot rest in our home because our home is my job. And so I've never really given myself the opportunity to rest and to relax. I'm often not even willing to go to bed early because I can always switch another load of laundry or like unload the dishwasher or pick something up or wipe something down. And that's definitely been a struggle for me. Which has led me to anxiety, really.
Yes.
But also symptoms of burnout, anxiety, being emotionally numb. Those are all symptoms of like soul level exhaustion. And I've suffered from all three of those things at some point. Burnout, especially when the kids were really little, like when I had three littler ones that trying to manage all of the things. And your soul simply just becomes too overwhelmed to do anything more than it is currently doing. Your mind and your body are on overdrive and you're almost stuck in like fight or flight. And you can't express any emotion adequately because you're just too tired.
Right. Yeah. And we're constantly trying to get, I think part of it is we're trying to get approval from everybody, or that set person, maybe from our inner child of, hey, how much can I do to get the approval for what I'm doing? And when we need to really have the approval from God is what we're really seeking, because that's when we're going to get full. Because for me, where it fell to do this is having that work and life balance where I would just work.
There was no balance.
There's no balance and there's no accountability and there was no evaluation. And especially working in the church, which is interesting of how this is ministers don't Sabbath.
Ever. Or at least not that we have seen working in the church. Yeah.
Not in the church.
Yeah.
In the Christian church, it doesn't happen. And the summer times were the worst, where I would have maybe 3 days off each month.
That's generous.
And even during those 3 days, my phone's on, text messaging, emails, phone calls going, because it's being gone for a week for this and then preparing for the next week and gone for a week and then prepare for the next week. And there was always something going on. And I would never have a day off, which is crazy to start thinking of what the church is supposed to be doing and teaching how to do the Sabbath.
Right.
And the church doesn't do it. I always felt like I needed to be Jesus for somebody, which meant I had to be available 24/7.
Yeah.
Jesus took time off too.
Right.
Which is why we talk about boundaries all the time and how you have to build those. And we can't be Jesus because we're not perfect, but also even trying to be Jesus means that we are taking time to take a Sabbath to connect more with God and get refreshed. The church, I think the biggest problems in the church is kind of part of how it's set up.
Yeah.
So a church must have a 501c3 to be tax exempt and all those things. But also with that, it must be ran by a board, which then you put elders in charge of the church that's in charge of the board, who is in charge of staff people, ministers, men and women who are trained and educated to run a church.
Right.
And to be the leaders of that church and everything else. I understand what Paul says of here's elders, here's deacons, and what they're supposed to do. I also understand how ministers are actually trained of what they're supposed to do. But what it takes is like in Egyptian times with Moses and Pharaoh. Pharaoh was a king and demanded slaves to do the work and didn't give breaks. Elders run the church like a business, and the staff, ministers, are the ones who have to work. And a lot of those places are demanding 60 hours a week and no change.
Yes.
And no breaks. So elders, demand and evaluate and make sure your staff takes a Sabbath.
Yeah.
Period.
Because that was, it didn't matter which church we were in. We've been in several.
Well, even the ones that we have known friends at, even
Yes.
the ones that are around the communities that we've been in too.
Right.
It's no different.
No. And the reason that I think you see the headlines that you see where pastors have succumbed to a moral failure is because no one is there to encourage those pastors to go home and connect with their families appropriately. Right. They're not being encouraged to take time, fill their own soul, like worship elsewhere every now and then,
Right.
be off, like just be able to separate and turn off.
Yep.
And when that happens, you are so exhausted that of course the enemy is going to like have a fantastic time attacking you, and it's going to succeed, and there's going to be moral failure because pastors aren't allowed to rest. And so, the world says do more. It doesn't matter what part of the world, like even the church world says do more.
Do more.
Pastors are expected to work 60 hours a week. Jesus doesn't say do more. No. Jesus says abide in me. And Matthew 11, 28 to 30 says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Yeah, that's great. Because the question that you kind of need to ask yourself is, what part of life am I driven by? Is it out of fear or out of love? And with fear, you're going to fail all the time. 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. And what God wants in us is not fear. He wants love. And so whenever we are afraid to let people down, my boss tells me I have to do X, Y, Z, but you've already got family stuff scheduled. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of really separating from God and saying no? Or are you afraid of that boss? And I understand that.
It's fear of man.
Fear of man
Yeah.
is rough, because that's where we have a fear of, well, now I get fired and then I don't have a paycheck and I don't have all this. When God is also there providing for us whenever those times do happen.
Yeah. And we've seen that this year, that God is a God who provides.
Big time.
I was thinking, like, is there any statistical information that could feed this? And
found some.
Guess what? There is. So I'm going to kind of just highlight a little bit of it. The 15th annual AFLAC workforce report, published in 2025, found that 72% of U.S. employees report moderate to very high stress at work. Heavy workloads are the top reported driver of the stress. Yep. So, yes, heavy workloads. Yep. And then AFLAC Investors 2024 version of the report also noted that there were growing severe implications of stress, including post-traumatic stress and eating disorders, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
So, and then another recent report published in May 2025 in Time magazine found that people who work more than 52 hours per week show an actual structural change in their brain regions that are related to emotional regulation, memory, and decision making.
Which is probably the cause of mass burnout all over our country.
Right. So this suggests that overworking isn't just emotionally or mentally taxing, but it is actually physically changing the way that your brain works, specifically the parts responsible for managing stress and cognition.
Yeah.
Like your ability to think and process and make good decisions.
So all bosses that are out there realize and understand this. you overworking your employees is actually making them not as smart.
Right. It's actually like you're shooting yourself in the foot,
Big
so
time.
to speak. So according to the American I'm going to say that again. According to the American Psychological Association's 2024 Work in America survey, this seems underwhelming, but a quarter of all U.S. workers reported emotional exhaustion in the past month.
Right.
In the same report, 29% said that they had a lack of interest and motivation or energy, and a quarter also said that they had difficulty focusing. So these are the things that lead to emotional exhaustion, low motivation, difficulty concentrating, and our core burnout symptoms.
Yeah. Which with that, that's for me, when we first kind of went through those numbers is like, that seems low. Mm-hmm. But then I guess if the world just says, this is how you're supposed to work day in and day out, this is just how it is, then yeah, what other ways are you going to respond?
Well, I think it's low because that is emotional exhaustion.
Right.
I don't think that most of us have the personal awareness to recognize that we are not just physically tired or mentally tired, but that like we can't even identify emotions.
Right.
So we don't know that we're emotionally tired.
Right.
So I think that's probably why that's a little bit lower. Most people just genuinely don't have a clue what emotional exhaustion is.
Because we're not supposed to have emotions. If so, then you're dramatic and you're causing problems and all this when you just have feelings, and that's where's taking place. So you just cram them down.
Right. So we are limiting our margin for capacity, essentially. And it's proving God's word, it's true. It's proving that God's word is completely accurate. Rest is not optional for a healthy soul. So I decided this week that I was going to force myself to listen to a book on the Sabbath. And so I listened to Walter Brueggemann's Sabbath as Resistance. And a lot of it, I think I've heard before in sermons and other places, but some of our information is going to come from the principles in Sabbath as Resistance.
Right.
Sabbath is supposed to bring compassion and solidarity. God is not a workaholic.
Right. Took some time off.
Yeah, God is not a workaholic. He is not worried about the full function of creation. He took a day off and said, I understand that creation can manage without my being involved, which is if you stop and think about that, he is not worried about that. He knows creation can handle it.
Right.
So probably we don't need to be all in all the time either. The well-being of creation does not depend on endless work.
Right. Well, and in Exodus, we talk about the Sabbath of where Moses pulls out the Israelites out of Exodus and Pharaoh's endless labor of stuff.
Yeah.
And Moses says, hey, we're going to change this up. Pharaoh made you work 7 days, 365. We're stopping that because God knows that it's great for you to have a Sabbath and connect back with him. And as he took them out into the wilderness, and everything is, hey, we're going to set up the new structure. We're going to have a Sabbath. We're going to take a day of rest because not only whenever we get to the new promised land, but that structure needs to stay the same. That we're not going to continue to have bosses and leaders who are just going to make the people work all the time. We've got to change this from the core all the way through because Sabbath is an equalizer of production-based society.
Yeah.
And it helps us keep moving whenever we are able to take a break and be able to connect with God.
Yeah. Yeah. Those Egyptians oppressed the Israelites with quite literally crushing, endless, dehumanizing work.
Right.
And the cultural expectation for us today is not that much different.
Nope.
We put these incredibly unrealistic expectations even onto our school-age children, which I think is why, as adults, we have no clue that it's unrealistic, dehumanizing expectations. So we have to stop and resist the pressure for ourselves and for our children, so that they don't perpetuate what we're doing because they will do what we model for them to do. So not honoring the Sabbath means that we are a slave to ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we have become a self-imposed slave driver for our own soul. And Sabbath makes us free just to be,
Right.
not to do.
Yeah. And it helps us to be able to resist a lot of sins that we live in.
Yeah.
So fear, greed, consumption of materialistic things, us always constantly hurry, because we're never going to get everything done. It's not going to happen. And so us stopping and saying, I'm going to build a boundary and I'm going to take this and we're going to have control and I'm going to take time to rest, helps us to be able to push the fear out of ourselves of I'm not afraid of man anymore because I want to focus on this. And whenever we forget about God, then we miss a lot of things. But whenever we forget about man and what's going on, and then we can focus on God, we can see his purpose of everything and see what his real plan is for us.
Yeah. Yeah. When we rest, we are really declaring that we understand that God will provide even if we stop. And so I've really never believed that rest was needed. So you were kind of always told that you, as in ministry, you got 1 day a week off, and that was it. You were expected to work the other 6, which didn't really equate to a day off.
No.
Because there's there's so much to be done that there was that never really happened. And so, God allowed us to be taken out of the work hustle lifestyle a little over a year ago. And we have had to trust him in this, I feel like he just kind of pressed pause on our life and we've had to kind of trust that he would provide. And he has.
Yeah. And kind of a detox as well of all of that. Because the Sabbath says, my value isn't in what I can produce, but in who I belong to. And it takes some time to detox some of those different things out so I can really remember whose am I and who is God. Some modern day pharaohs of what we look at today, probably your boss. Could be some algorithms, depending on what your pleasure of man of trying to make sure I get enough views, what's some of the expectations in my life, or even ministry itself.
Yeah. Oof. And I think that this is really something I think people who work in the church need to stop and think about. 1 day of Sabbath a month is not going to cut it.
No.
You need to be taking time to refresh your soul, because Sabbath is about presence.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about perfection, which is kind of why I think most people avoid it, because the way that it's set up in the Bible is, you have to have all this stuff done. And then you literally can't take more than so many paces away from your home. You can't turn on the lights. You can't run the washer. It's not about being perfect. It's not about the legalism of it. Because perfectionism is just a subtle version of self-hatred and shame. And so we're not about that. That's not what it is. It's about being present with God and with the people that you love.
Right. Yeah. And the whole part of this is it's different than the Old Testament because of those things you were just saying. The rhythm that we're trying to do is cease and delight. Focus on God. Stop all the things of worry and all the other things I've got running through my head of that's going to happen in the future. I need to stop, relax, and delight in what God is doing in my life today and enjoying nature, enjoying creation, and not go back to the legalistic ways of doing stuff. Because like you were just saying of here's the Old Testament laws of what they would do. And part of that was because people wanted that. They're like, give me how far can I go? Like a teenager, how many steps do I really have to take or can I take?
Yeah.
And why? Whenever we take away the boundaries of some of those legalistic ways of viewing a Sabbath, and we focus on delighting and stopping and just focusing on God, then we can really enjoy a Sabbath.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was really interesting when I was listening to Sabbath as Resistance. he was talking about God is a covenant making God. And so when he was giving the land of Israel to the Israelites, he was saying, like, this is my covenant with you. I'm going to give you this land, and it's yours.
Yeah.
And in return, I want a relationship with you, essentially, which is what that day was designed to provide, was an opportunity for relationship. We think about things in terms of property, and property means work. So that's what the other people in the area were doing. They were working property. And God was saying, no, I'm going to do this as a covenant. Covenant means that we have a heritage, something to pass on to our children, to our grandchildren. And so we don't want this to be like, oh, you need to stop because this is what God says, or this is not external pressure or guilt in any way. We are really just trying to help you build Sabbath so that you're building a heritage, a covenant with your children where they know that, you will pause for them, that you will make time and space for them. And if that starts with one day a week, great. You're building a covenant with God, a heritage that passes on. Your relationship with God is going to grow. Your children are going to see that. They're going to see that you've taken the time to delight in the Lord, to stop all the chaos and enjoy Him. And that will be something that they can come back to too.
Right.
So,
yeah, it gives you some big perspective whenever you're able to take some time and let that just be able to focus on Him.
yeah.
Yeah. So some practical modern examples, and you help me because this is not easy for me. First one especially is turn your phone off for 24 hours.
You were working even yesterday on Thanksgiving.
It never stops. And that's because I'm used to that. Turn it off for 24 hours. And maybe turning off is turning off emails to pace yourself into going into a full Sabbath of turning it off for 24 hours. Sometimes it's not simple, and I understand. But figure out something to turn work off or turn those other things off to be able to have that time to slow down. Make breakfast with the family and have a breakfast time. We sit down all the time and have dinners every single night. No phones, just us.
It nearly kills Adeline every night, though.
Yeah. And Saturday mornings, a lot of times I'll make waffles and we just sit there and we have waffles together. But take some time for these specific things. Build up these traditions of doing this. Worship is huge. Can be done anytime. With YouTube that we have available today, you can watch any church service if you're like, oh, I want a full band, blah, blah, blah. It's there.
Yeah. Lyndon will turn on the Alexa and I'll whisper it so it doesn't ding. But he'll turn it on and just say, like, play Forrest Frank.
Yeah.
He loves to just listen to Forrest Frank.
Yep.
And then he goes around the rest of the day singing it.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as like really solid lyrics, I'll take Forrest Frank music on like all day, every day. If there's going to be music on, make it Forrest Frank. It's good, like biblical worship.
Yeah. And the next one, something that you enjoy, because again, some of these things you might not enjoy. You enjoy, but you do not schedule this, is read.
No.
Where you would love to just take a book, go somewhere and read.
I would love to.
But you don't do it.
No.
And should do that.
But I would have to go somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Again, not something I feel like, oh, this is going to be enjoyable. Delightful. Take a nap in a different way. Yes, that would be joy. Walk, which we do a lot of times.
Yeah.
Play. Find some hobby or something that you enjoy doing outside or with some people that you enjoy hanging out with. And it's a way of just enjoying time and resting.
Yeah.
Rebuilding your stuff.
This one's really enjoyed Uno the last few days.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun just to like sit down and hang out. And just play like one game that lasts 3 hours. Uno.
Well, another part is verbally reminding yourself, this is my Sabbath.
Yeah.
This is my time. And constantly, especially whenever you're first starting to do this, you kind of have to say, hey, no, this is too much like work. I need to stop. This is my Sabbath. I don't need to answer my phone. I don't need to do this. And I just need to also, maybe you're so into the grind of everything. It's, hey, I just need to remind myself to have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah.
So practice gratitude is what always is a great thing. And then write it down.
Yeah. I think that's a huge part, is writing down the things that you're thankful for. I know for me, I've admitted I'm not super great at slowing down, but I do every day. I sauna, well, maybe 6 days a week. But that is kind of my prayer time. Like nobody bothers me.
Right.
I go in the garage and I turn on the sauna, and that is my prayer time. Yeah. And so while it seems like a strange time or a strange thing to call part of like Sabbath, my Sabbath ritual, that is definitely my prayer time. And I can see how it is very beneficial for me to have that time. I also do Devo with Lyndon every morning as part of his school, which is sometimes hurried. And so this has been a good reminder that I need to slow that back down and just enjoy it. Even if I'm reading it to him while he eats, that's okay. But slowing that down and doing that with him, I love our read aloud time. The boys, I read to them every day. Something that goes along with Lyndon's school usually. Who doesn't like to be read to? I mean, if it's a really good book, everybody likes to be read to. And so they will, like, sometimes we'll just go out on the deck and sit and read. Sometimes it's a missionary story. Sometimes it's like just a good book, like the Little House on the Prairie series, or, whatever, just a good classic piece of literature. Sometimes it's just slowing down, watching a movie, watching a show.
Right.
You like to play Fortnite with the boys.
Yep.
They would love for me to play Fortnite with them, but I'm not doing that. Walking the dog, like you said. I love to listen to podcasts, so I'm happy doing that.
Yep.
So those are just some ideas of things that you could call Sabbath.
Exactly. So Jesus points us to him as with the Sabbath. So Hebrews 4 reminds us that the Sabbath is ultimately found in Christ. Mm-hmm. Therefore, remain then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests with their works, just as God did from his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest, so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience.
Yeah. So I really love Lisa Turkhurst. She has done a lot for emotional intelligence in the Christian community. But she says in Good Boundaries and Goodbyes, peace is the evidence of a heart that is resting in God's goodness, even when the world keeps spinning. And so peace was my word for this year. And it's no wonder that I've had to stop and trust God, put my fear in his hands, and find new ways to connect with him this year.
Jesus doesn't just invite us to rest. He is our rest.
Right.
And so sitting in prayer time and visualizing, handling our problems, and just turning that over to him is rest and peace.
Yeah. So Sabbath is God's way of giving us a weekly reminder that you're not the Savior.
Right.
He is. You can stop because he's still working. He's got everything under control. You can rest because his love doesn't depend on your performance. So I'm going to read one last closing scripture, Psalm 23, verses 2 and 3. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul.
Yep. So we encourage you to, this week, take a Sabbath. Take it and figure out some ways of what you're going to do, and then write it down in the comments. We want to know what you are doing, and not just for us personally, but also others want to know some other ways that can take place, especially during this time of holidays and everything else.
Right. Yeah. So you can find all of our other episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And you can also find our coaching services at curatedcoalition.com. So we would love to help coach around burnout, boundaries, emotional healing, all of those things. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. My hope is that you leave here reminded that whatever you're facing, you're not crushed, abandoned, or destroyed. That's the promise of 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 and the heartbeat of hope through the hard. Visit curatedcoalition.com for all of our coaching services or to book your free consultation. We'll see you next time.